Welcome to the Phil and H Travel Podcast. Is it worth it? You know, usually when we talk about discovering a new favorite travel destination, it feels exactly like discovering a new favorite indie band.
Oh, yeah. That is the perfect way to look at it.
Right, because there is this magical, fleeting window of time where you find them playing in a tiny, crowded dive bar. The music is raw, the tickets are like $10, and you just feel like you're in on this incredible secret.
A secret that belongs only to you and maybe a few hundred other people.
Exactly. But then, inevitably, someone puts their song on a massive Spotify playlist. Suddenly, they're everywhere.
And the next time you try to see them, they definitely aren't at the dive bar anymore.
No, they're playing a stadium. And the core of what made them great is still exactly the same. It's still incredible.
Yeah.
But now you're navigating these awful Ticketmaster queues, you are paying a massive premium for parking, and there are 30,000 other people wearing the exact same merchandise.
It is the unavoidable life cycle of discovery. I mean, you are fundamentally trading intimacy for infrastructure.
You really are. And today, this deep dive puts Madeira, Portugal, firmly in the verdict seat. Because let me tell you, this island has officially hit its stadium era.
Oh, absolutely. It just topped TripAdvisor's global trending list for 2026.
Right, and the island is feeling every single click, every hashtag, every geotag of that fame. I mean, we're looking at a massive influx, 5.1 million airport arrivals last year alone.
Which is a staggering volume for an island of that size.
It's insane. So today we are going to explore a sweeping new tourist tax system that touches almost every part of your experience, right down to trail access fees on the most famous hikes.
Yeah, they are taxing the trails now.
I promise you we are going to cover everything. We're going to look at the reality of a $45 hostel all the way up to a $380 clifftop resort. We'll detail 3 critical logistics traps that catch out even experienced travelers.
Those traps are brutal, by the way.
They really are. And finally, we are going to give you a brutally honest verdict on whether Madeira is actually worth the flight in 2026. Okay, let's unpack this.
I think the mechanics of this shift are what fascinate me the most here. Because we're not just going to run through a dry list of what a cup of coffee costs right now.
No, we need the context.
Right? We need to analyze the data for the why. We're going to explore exactly how an island manages the very tourism machine that it built.
Because they built a monster.
They did. When a destination becomes this popular this quickly, the economic and logistical architecture has to adapt. The tension between preserving a pristine environment and accommodating millions of visitors, it creates this fascinating study in modern travel dynamics.
And to really understand that tension, we have to go exactly in order through 11 crucial segments, starting with the raw, uncompromising numbers.
The sheer volume really is staggering.
It is. Let's rewind to 2019. That feels like a lifetime ago, but it really wasn't. Back then, roughly 3.4 million people used Funchal Airport. Fast forward to last year. That figure skyrocketed to 5.1 million arrivals.
Which is a 50% jump in under 6 years?
50%.
Yeah, and context is everything when we look at a search like that. You have to visualize the physical space we're talking about here. Madeira is roughly the size of Greater London.
Okay.
But it only has a permanent population of 250,000 people.
Wait, let me visualize that ratio for a second. If you do the math, that means in 2025, 20 tourists arrived for every single resident living on the island.
Yes. 20 to 1.
Imagine your hometown. And then imagine 20 strangers with rolling luggage showing up for every single person who lives on your street. You'd have to fundamentally change how your town operates.
You'd have no choice.
It's honestly no wonder they keep winning these massive industry awards. I mean, they've taken home Europe's leading island destination almost every single year since 2013, and they've held the world's leading island destination title since 2015.
They built an incredibly successful brand. They basically perfected the art of destination marketing.
But the consequence of that success is that the regional authorities are now frantically responding to it. They are implementing this crazy cascade of new charges.
Yeah, we are seeing a €2, which is about $2.20 per night, municipal tourist tax that is now fully active across the board.
Wow. Every night.
Every night. Furthermore, there are new per-head cruise ship port levies. And perhaps most controversially for the traditional returning Madeira visitor, we're seeing newly minted trail access fees on the most walked levada routes.
The levadas, yeah.
Right? These are places like the Levada do Caldeirão Verde and the borders of the UNESCO Laura Silva Forest. They are even proposing a €2 daily car rental surcharge, expected to land right around the 2026 or 2027 window.
I look at all those new fees, and it brings me right back to that indie band analogy. The natural draws, the incredible volcanic peaks, the 25 degrees Celsius year-round average temperatures, these amazing levada water channels that were literally cut into the cliffside 600 years ago.
Just incredible engineering.
Right, they moved water from the rainy north to the sunny south. All of that is completely untouched. The music is still great. But the ticketing fees, the access charges, the sheer cost of stepping foot in the venue, it's piling up at an unprecedented rate.
Well, the island generated $580 million in tourism revenue in a recent reporting year.
$500 million.
Exactly. And we have to view that revenue as a regulatory valve. The local government isn't just trying to line its pockets here. They're intentionally twisting the dial. They're raising the price of entry to slow the flood of visitors to a manageable trickle.
So they're pricing people out on purpose.
Yes. They're using these new tax tools specifically to protect the qualities that made Madeira famous in the first place. So if you've been sitting at home staring at photos of Madeira's dramatic cliffs, putting this trip off year after year.
Like so many people do.
Right. 2026 might be your absolute final window. Because after this, the crowds and this new premium pricing structure are going to cross a threshold that redefines the island entirely.
Okay, so if the clock is ticking and we are trying to beat these crowds and navigate this hostile pricing structure, the single most important decision you make is exactly when you go.
Time of year is crucial.
Let's orient ourselves geographically first, because I think a lot of people just assume Madeira is right off the coast of Lisbon.
Oh, it is definitely not.
No, it's sitting way out there in the Atlantic Ocean. It is 600 kilometers west of the Moroccan coast and 800 kilometers away from mainland Portugal. It is a genuine, isolated, mid-Atlantic outpost.
Which means it has a highly specific microclimate architecture. The geography completely dictates the weather, and you cannot treat it like a monolithic landmass.
What do you mean by that?
Well, on the south coast, where the capital city of Funchal is located, it catches the sun beautifully. Because of the island's central mountains blocking the northern weather systems, Funchal enjoys 20 to 24 degrees Celsius year-round.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
It is. But if you get in a car and drive to the north coast, it is a completely different world. It's wilder, it is significantly wetter, and it averages 3 to 5 degrees cooler.
Just on the other side of the island.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have the center of the island. The Pico Revo Plateau sits at a staggering elevation of 1,800 meters. At that height, you are regularly sitting right in the middle of dense, freezing cloud banks.
I am so glad you brought that up, because this is where I constantly want to push back on the glossy marketing brochures.
The year-round spring thing.
Yes. You see these ads pushing Madeira as this flawless, year-round spring paradise. So wait, you're telling me you can't just pack a swimsuit for December. There's an 1,800-meter volcanic mountain range hiding in the middle of this.
Yeah, the year-round spring label is brilliant marketing, but it is highly deceptive. What's fascinating here is how altitude completely changes the travel experience.
Right.
It only applies if you never leave the southern sea level. This raises an important question for you, the traveler. What kind of trip are you actually packing for?
Are you hiking or are you lounging?
Exactly. Because it's a phenomenon called orographic lift. The trade winds hit the northern side of those mountains, they push upward, cool rapidly, and dump their moisture as rain and fog. So if you're going up into the interior to hike, you need serious thermal layers, a waterproof shell, and sturdy boots. I don't care what month the calendar says it is.
Okay, so assuming we want to optimize for the best possible weather across the whole island, and we want to avoid the worst of the pricing surge, what does the ideal calendar look like?
Breaking down the data, the absolute best months to visit seem to be April through June.
Springtime.
Yes, you get those perfect temperatures hitting 22 to 25 degrees in Funchal. The heavy winter rains have cleared out, which means the levada trails and the waterfalls are incredibly lush.
And you get the flower festival then too, right?
You do. Late April or early May. It is one of those genuinely spectacular, vibrant local events that actually hasn't lost its soul yet. And crucially, the flight math works during this window.
Tell me about the flights.
If you are flying out of a major hub like London in May, you can snag round-trip flights for roughly $340. The crowds are definitely there, but the peak summer cruise ship armada hasn't completely taken over the ports yet.
Now, compare that golden window to the absolute worst months for value, July and August.
Oh, summer is punishing.
It really is. This is when the economics of the island aggressively turn against you. Average hotel rates across the island push well above $280 a night in the summer.
Just for an average room.
Yep. And round-trip flights from major hubs jump massively, often hitting $600 to $700 or even higher. And the physical congestion at iconic viewpoints, places like the Cabo Girón Skywalk and the Pico do Arriero Summit, is at its absolute peak.
You were literally elbowing people for space to take a photograph.
It sounds miserable. Furthermore, August brings a Madeira wine festival, which is a wonderful cultural event, but it drives accommodation demand in Funchal to a seasonal, hyperinflated peak.
But if you are listening to this from North America, you have a completely different strategy to play.
The North American sweet spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your sweet spot is actually the shoulder season deep in autumn. October and November are fantastic. We are seeing direct or highly efficient connected fares out of New York starting around $599.
Wow, under $600.
Yeah, and island-wide hotel averages finally drop back below $200 a night. It's like the whole island just exhales.
But we have to warn you about the ultimate outlier in the calendar, New Year's Eve.
Oh, yes. The fireworks.
Madeira holds a Guinness World Record for the largest fireworks display in the world. The geography of Funchal forms this natural amphitheater facing the ocean, and they launch fireworks from dozens of points simultaneously.
It's visually stunning.
It is, but because of this spectacle, the week surrounding December 31st is the single most expensive and crowded period on the entire island. You have to budget for absolute premium season pricing everywhere. Flights, hotels, rental cars.
Even getting a dinner table is a nightmare.
Totally. Expect heavily inflated holiday menus everywhere. So you've picked your month and booked the flight. What happens the second your plane touches down?
Well, the arrival itself is an experience.
It's not like landing at JFK, right? You land at Cristiano Ronaldo International Airport. And yes, for the soccer fans, it is named after him. It even has that slightly terrifying bronze bust in the terminal.
The bust is definitely a photo op.
But the truly crazy part is the runway itself. It is literally built on these giant concrete pillars extending directly out over the violent Atlantic Ocean.
It is widely considered one of the most technically demanding runway approaches in European commercial aviation. Pilots actually require special certification just to land there.
That is wild.
It really sets the tone for your entire trip. The moment those wheels hit the tarmac, you understand that human engineering is in a constant, precarious negotiation with rugged nature here. The airport sits on the far eastern edge of the island, and your drive into central Funchal is going to take about 40 minutes on these very well-maintained sweeping highways.
Let's talk about the exact cost of that 40-minute drive. Because the financial meter starts running the second you clear customs.
It always does.
If you walk out the sliding glass doors and grab a standard taxi off the rank to central Funchal, you are looking at $25 to $35. If you are a planner and pre-book a private transfer online before you leave home, you can usually get that down to $20 to $28.
Which I highly recommend doing.
For sure. Now, if you are renting a car straight from the airport, the base rate starts around $35 a day. But watch for that proposed $2.20 daily rental surcharge that might be active by the time you arrive.
And let me be absolutely uncompromising about driving on Madeira.
Okay, hit me.
It is not optional if you want to properly experience the island's interior. The road network is a staggering complex system. You have incredibly deep tunnels bored through solid volcanic rock, modern expressways elevated on pillars, and terrifyingly narrow, winding single-track roads hugging the levadas up in the clouds.
It sounds like Mario Kart.
It richly rewards confident drivers, let's put it that way. If you think you're going to navigate the remote North Coast villages relying solely on the public bus network, the Horarias do Funchal, you are making a massive strategic error.
But the bus is cheap, right?
Yes, it's about $2 a journey, but the routes winding up into the Central Mountains are infrequent, slow, and heavily schedule dependent. Doing the North Coast by bus alone is a mistake.
Okay, so you've got your rental car or you've taken your $30 taxi and you finally get into Funchal. The vibe there is really distinct.
It really is.
It's like a historic coastal Portuguese city decided to merge with a vertical, humid botanical garden. You have the old town, Zona Velha, with these incredible cobbled streets.
And the painted doors?
Yes. Everywhere you look, there are heavily painted artistic door murals. It was this urban revitalization project that turned the streets into an open-air gallery. And Every single restaurant menu you pass is practically shouting at you about their fresh tuna steak.
Now, to get your initial bearings in Funchal, the classic, undeniably touristy but necessary move is taking the modern cable car up to the neighborhood of Monte.
Definitely.
It is $20 for a round-trip ticket, and it provides the single best 5-minute visual orientation of the topography you can get. You glide silently over the terracotta roofs, looking down into people's private terrace gardens.
And you realize just how steep the city really is.
You really do.
And what goes up must come down. But in Madeira, they have a profoundly strange way of getting you down. You have to take the wicker toboggan ride.
I was hoping you'd bring this up.
It is pure, unfiltered, historical madness. You pay 15 to 20 bucks per person. You sit in a giant woven wicker basket that looks like oversized patio furniture, and two local guys wearing white uniforms, straw hats, and thick rubber-soled boots literally push you down a steep, winding, slick public street.
And they just use their boots as brakes.
Literally just the rubber boots. It sounds like a tourist trap, but it is honestly the best 20 bucks you will spend.
It originated in the 19th century as a genuine method of rapid transport for the wealthy residents of Monte to get down to Funchal quickly. It is slightly chaotic, and it is entirely unique to the island.
So fun.
But while we praise the historical quirks, we do need to offer a structural critique of Funchal as a whole. You must set your expectations correctly here.
Right.
This is not Lisbon. You aren't getting that massive cosmopolitan density or cutting-edge culinary scene. And it isn't Porto with its raw, industrial riverfront grit. Funchal is slower, it is much greener, and it is deliberately, almost aggressively beautiful. However, the modern waterfront tourist infrastructure has developed what I would call a jarring theme park quality.
Jarring is the absolute perfect word for it. You walk down by the marina and it feels almost too manicured, too processed. It feels like a high-end outdoor shopping mall designed for people who don't actually want to experience a foreign country.
Exactly. And that theme park feel at the waterfront is a direct symptom of the cruise ship industry clashing with local culture. When you have 2 or 3 massive ships docking and thousands of passengers disembarking simultaneously for a strict 6-hour window, the city's infrastructure has to adapt to process them efficiently. The result is a waterfront zone that prioritizes high-throughput, sanitized, frictionless experiences over authentic local grit.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, so now that we're off the toboggan and we've avoided the theme park waterfront, where are we actually sleeping and what is it going to cost?
Let's run the accommodation numbers.
If you are on a strict budget, looking in that $40 to $55 a night range, Funchal actually has some surprisingly solid options left. The Locatel Hostel right in central Funchal is a great benchmark. You can get a dorm bed for $22 or a private room for $45.
And it has a really nice harbor view roof.
It does. If you want something slightly more traditional but still cheap, Casa Tipica in the Old Town does charming guest house double rooms for $55, with a basic breakfast usually included. But listen to me carefully. You have to book these specific budget spots 6 to 8 weeks out if you are traveling anywhere near April or August. They vanish instantly.
Now, if you can stretch your budget to the mid-range tier, say the $110 to $180 per night bracket, this is where Madeira arguably delivers the best value in all of Europe.
It's the sweet spot.
It is. The island-wide current average hotel rate is sitting at a steep $292 a night. But smart mid-range planning beats that mathematical average easily.
I want to zero in on this because here's where it gets really interesting. You don't have to stay in a generic hotel block. You can stay in something called a quinta. Unpack that for us. What makes a quinta so special?
A quinta is fundamentally a historic agricultural estate or manor house. Because of the island's history of wealthy wine merchants and sugar barons, the landscape is dotted with these grand 19th century estates surrounded by mature botanical gardens or working vineyards.
They sound incredibly expensive.
You'd think so, but many of them have been meticulously converted into boutique hotels that are surprisingly affordable.
And the pricing is just shocking. For example, Quinta de Bella Vista is a gorgeous 19th century manor in Funchal, running about $130 a night. Or, if you want to get out of the city and head to the rugged north coast near Santana, there is the Quinta de Furão.
That one is beautiful.
It sits right on a dramatic cliff dropping straight down into the sea. It is completely integrated into a working vineyard, and it runs between $140 and $160 a night. Explaining to your friends back home that you spent $140 to sleep on a cliffside vineyard instead of a generic hotel, That is how you win at travel booking.
It represents exceptional value for a deeply rooted, authentic experience. Now, if we scale up and look at the upscale luxury tier, Reed's Palace, the Belmont Hotel, remains the undisputed historical benchmark.
The famous Reeds.
Yes, it sits imperiously on a clifftop above Funchal. It opened back in 1891. Winston Churchill famously stayed there. Rooms there start at $340 a night.
Okay, I have to challenge that pricing. Wait, $340 a night for a hotel that opened in 1891. Are you actually paying for superior luxury, or are you just paying an exorbitant premium for the privilege of sitting in the exact same chair where Winston Churchill smoked a cigar?
Well, you are undoubtedly paying a heavy premium for the heritage, the name, and the immaculate white glove service. But if you want to experience the grandeur without the overnight price tag, their afternoon tea on the terrace is an island institution.
How much is that?
It runs $55 per person, and it gives you full access to the views and the history for a fraction of the cost.
That's a great hack.
For travelers wanting upscale amenities without the intense formality, the Vitamar Resort Hotel near the Lido area starts at $155. It's great for active families with massive pool complexes right on the ocean.
And we absolutely cannot talk about accommodation in 2026 without addressing the digital nomads.
The nomad scene is huge here.
The island set up the world's first government-backed digital nomad village in a beautiful town called Ponta do Sol. Funchal monthly apartments are running between $900 and $1,400. A studio in Ponta do Sol is sitting between $800 and $1,100 a month. But you mentioned something in your notes about an NHR tax framework.
It did.
Hold on, you just threw a dense financial acronym at me. What exactly is an NHR framework, and why is it making remote tech workers pack up their lives and move to a rock in the Atlantic?
The digital nomad phenomenon here is a masterclass in demographic engineering by the Portuguese government. The NHR, or non-habitual resident regime, was a tax framework designed to attract high-value professionals by offering massive tax exemptions or flat rates on foreign-sourced income.
Oh, wow.
And while the mainland is restructuring this, Madeira has aggressively utilized every fiscal tool available to them. Why Ponta do Sol? It isn't just because the sunsets are pretty. It is the deliberate fusion of hard infrastructure and fiscal incentive.
They built it specifically for them.
They literally laid fast fiber optic broadband across the rugged terrain. They instituted a highly aggressive 5% corporate tax rate for certain business setups. They actively, intentionally changed the island's demographic footprint by inviting a high-earning, low-impact class of long-term visitors.
To offset the cruise ships, right?
Exactly, to offset their dangerous reliance on short-term, low-yield cruise passengers.
That is incredibly smart. Okay, after securing a bed or a nomad studio, it's time to eat. Let's look at the food, the grocery, and the restaurant economics.
Yeah.
Let's start with the absolute signature dishes. You are going to see a dish called espada on literally every menu. It's usually served with a cooked banana, and it runs $14 to $18.
It's very unique.
I demand a scientific explanation for this. I looked up a picture of an espada. It is a black scabbard fish. It is a terrifying, eel-like deep-sea monster with massive jagged teeth and giant unblinking eyes. Why on earth are they taking this nightmare fish from the dark depths of the ocean and pairing it with a tropical fruit?
I know it sounds completely absurd until you look at the historical and geographical context. Madeira is an incredibly isolated volcanic rock jutting out of a deep ocean trench. The ocean floor drops off precipitously right off the coast.
Right.
The black scabbard fish lives at immense depth, usually around 800 to over 1,000 meters down. For centuries, it was one of the few abundant, high-quality protein sources the isolated islanders could reliably pull from those profound depths.
Okay, that explains the fish.
And at the exact same time, the microclimate on the steep southern slopes of the island is perfectly suited for growing a hyperlocal, intensely sweet banana crop.
So it's literally just a collision of necessity and geography.
Exactly. You have isolated islanders historically combining their two most abundant and unique resources. And from a culinary perspective, the intense sweetness of the banana perfectly cuts the inherent saltiness and the rich oils of the deep-water fish.
All right, I'll trust the process. The other big traditional staple is espetada. This is huge chunks of beef rubbed in bay laurel and garlic, skewered, and cooked directly over charcoal. That'll set you back $16 to $22.
Delicious.
If you are doing a proper sit-down lunch in Funchal's Old Town with a glass of wine, expect to pay $18 to $26 per person. But you must beware the waterfront trap.
Oh, the waterfront premium is real.
That exact same meal down by the promenade will cost you $35 to $45 for a massive drop in quality. Now, what about the wine?
You must explore the wine culture. Vinho Madeira is famous worldwide. What is remarkable is the localized pricing. If you buy a decent bottle in a local shop, you are paying between $5.50 to $13.
That is so cheap for good wine.
A glass in a nice wine bar is between $4.40 and $6.60. And if you really want to understand it, Blandy's Wine Lodge in Funchal is the go-to. A tasting session runs $15 to $22, and they walk you through the four main styles: Surcial, Verdelho, Dual, and Malmsey.
Love that. But let's say you aren't eating out every night. Let's look at the supermarkets like Continente or Pingo Doce. The prices here are essentially frozen in 2015. A loaf of fresh local bread, the pão, is $1.10. A liter of milk is $1.40. A kilo of those local bananas is $1.20.
Very reasonable.
A big bottle of water is 90 cents. A local coral beer is $1.10. A dozen eggs will run you $3.20, and a half kilo of chicken breast is $4.80. A week of basic self-catering for two people hovers right around $120 to $140.
And regarding etiquette, tipping 10% is considered a generous standard for good service in a sit-down restaurant. In smaller, family-run places, simply leaving the change in coins on the table is perfectly fine.
Good to know.
But I must issue a crucial warning regarding your grocery shopping. The Mercado dos Lavradores, the famous covered market in Funchal, is a visual spectacle. But it is, unfortunately, a highly sophisticated tourist trap. Buy your daily groceries at the Continente supermarket 2 streets away. You will literally pay half the price.
Got it. Skip the market for actual groceries. Okay, we have all the individual pieces: the hotel, the car, the food. If we add it all up, what is the actual out-of-pocket daily damage? Let's build the budget.
Let's start with the low-budget tier. This is roughly $65 to $85 a day. That covers your $22 to $30 hostel bed, 2 local meals around $20 to $28, maybe a free hike, a bus ticket, and a coffee.
But if you're a backpacker calculating every cent, hear this. Madeira is not Southeast Asia. That new municipal tourist tax alone is pushing this daily minimum well above $70 before you even do anything fun. It's premium positioned, not backpacker cheap.
And this is deliberate. The island's government actively wants to weed out the ultra-low budget tier to manage capacity. They prioritize visitors who bring a higher daily yield.
Right. Now, the mid-range tier, the sweet spot, runs $145 to $195 a day. That gets you your gorgeous boutique quinta, great meals, your rental car, an attraction fee, and your wine tasting.
Then you have the high-end or luxury tier, which scales rapidly from $400 to well over $600 a day. That is your night at Reed's Palace, fine dining for $80 to $120, a private guide for $45 to $65, a private driver, and clifftop cocktails.
Let's run a real-world scenario. A family of 4 doing 7 nights in the mid-range. Flights from London, $1,380. Hotel, $1,050. Food and activities, $700. Car rental, $280. And then you get hit with the tourist tax at checkout, $61.60 just for existing. Grand total, roughly $3,470.
For a family of 4, that represents a significant investment, but it's highly competitive compared to, say, the south of France. Finally, let's look at the digital nomad budget. Rent is $900 to $1,200. Groceries are $250 to $300. Co-working runs $80 to $120. Transport is $60 to $80. Dining out adds $300 to $380. Total monthly outlay, $1,700 to $2,200.
That is remarkably efficient, lower than Lisbon, Tenerife, or Majorca. But even if you have the budget dialed in, there are hidden landmines waiting for you. Let's name the 3 logistics traps that will absolutely wreck your spreadsheet.
Let's begin with trap number 1, the levada trail access fee creep. As we established, these are ancient irrigation channels with walking paths. Historically, they were completely free. Now the fee rollout isn't uniform.
Right, you might drive an hour up a mountain, lace up your boots, and boom, you hit a charged gate. Or worse, a mandatory guide rule that costs you $35 to $55 on the spot. The fix is to check Madeira trails on madeiratourism.com within 2 weeks of your trip and book guides a week ahead in peak season.
Trap number 2 is equally pervasive, the rental car and tunnel toll blind spot. The island has over 100 tunnels. Your car base rate is $35 to $40, but the violatorial tolls add $8 to $15 a day.
Imagine thinking you got a steal on a rental, only to get a massive toll bill because you drove through a mountain 15 times.
Exactly, because budget agencies don't include transponders. Plus, there's that proposed $2.20 daily tax, the fix. Ask for the transponder and budget an extra $60 to $80 a week. If we connect this to the bigger picture, these traps aren't malicious. They are the growing pains of an island rapidly updating its infrastructure to monetize high visitor volume.
And trap number 3, the Funchal Waterfront Restaurant Premium. Avenida do Mar, or the Marina, is 40 to 60% more expensive than Zona Vela or San Martino, just 200 meters away. Tuna steak is 16 inland, 28 to 32 at the waterfront. Fix. Walk uphill. Look for the Prado do Dia for $12 to $16.
Walk away from the cruise ships, always.
Always. Beyond the financial traps, what about physical safety and comfort, especially if you're traveling solo or with kids?
The headline here is that Madeira is extremely safe from a human crime perspective. Negligible violent crime, rare petty theft. The psychological safety of an island community is profound.
Because everyone knows everyone.
Exactly. But the hazards are almost entirely environmental. The ruggedness of the Atlantic environment demands profound respect.
This is massive for solo female travelers. Funchal is very comfortable. Solo hiking is common. But the rules are: offline map like Maps.m or All Trails, carry 6 hours of water and check the weather. Pico Revivo and Arriero cloud cover hits in under an hour. I cannot emphasize this enough. Nature doesn't care about your Instagram aesthetic. Zero visibility cloud in under an hour.
Yes. For families, the Lido area offers enclosed seawater pools and flat walks. The Caniso Resort Strip is budget-friendly. And kids under 13 are exempt from the €2 tax.
Let's hit the scams quickly. The Mercado dos Lavradores passion fruit and patanga scam, they charge 10 times the supermarket price. The toboggan photo scam decline the photos before boarding. And unlicensed, unmetered airport taxis. Avoid them all.
Simple awareness goes a long way.
So, surviving the hikes and dodging the fruit scammers, what are the absolute peaks of a Madeira trip and what will leave you cold? Let's look at the best moments and honest disappointments.
The best moments are world-class. Levada das 25 Fontes is a 90-minute walk to a hidden waterfall in a laurel forest. Trail access is $0 to $5, and the bus to the Rabasal trailhead is $12 to $15.
It's stunning. Then there's the Pico do Arriero to Pico Ruvo hike, a 9-kilometer volcanic ridge at 1,800 meters. A guided sunrise hike is $45 to $55.
And the whale and dolphin watching. Because of the deep waters, you can see sperm whales and pilot whales. A half day with Lobo Sonda or VMT Madeira is $55 to $75. Or just take the $20 cable car to Monte and spend $8 on the Jardin Botanico for a perfect half day.
Let's have a moment of silence for anyone who flies here expecting a white sand beach vacation.
It is a harsh reality for many.
It really is. The beaches are dark volcanic shingle, rocks, no sand. Porto Santo has 9 kilometers of sand, but requires a 2.5-hour ferry for $55 return or a 25-minute flight for $70 to $85 one way. The Lido is just a man-made pool complex. And then there's that corporate sheen. Cruise waves hit Funchal Marina between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Start hikes at 7 a.m. or go in October to avoid queuing on trails.
I like to reframe that disappointment, though. The lack of sandy beaches historically protected Madeira from becoming just another cheap resort strip. It preserved its unique hiking culture.
That's a great point. But if a sandy beach is a deal breaker for you, what are your alternatives? Alternative 1, Tenerife, Canary Islands. Flights from Sydney are $480 to $620. From London, $280 to $380. From Toronto, $550 to $700.
Tenerife features the tide volcano and genuine sand beaches. Costs are 10 to 15% lower than Madeira. But the South Coast is highly commercialized, and the Tide Summit needs permits 4 to 6 weeks out, which we covered in episode 250.
Alternative 2, Azores, San Miguel. Flights from London, $500 to $650. From New York, $650 to $850. We covered this in episode 268.
The Azores Aurora, less developed. Daily mid-range is $90 to $110. Whale watching is only about $33. Furnace hot springs are free, but it's wetter, windier, and has thinner infrastructure. There's no tourist tax architecture yet. It's where Madeira was 15 years ago. Tenerife is where Madeira is desperately trying not to end up.
So I ask you, choose your fighter. Do you want the cheap, sandy beaches of Tenerife, the raw, untamed Jurassic Park vibe of the Azores, or the refined botanical garden of Madeira? This brings us to the ultimate breakdown. Let's run the matrix. Is Madeira in 2026 actually worth it for you?
For the backpacker on $65 to $80 a day, It requires intense strategy due to tax layers on bids and trails. Needs advanced planning? Verdict. Worth it, but only with extreme discipline.
Mid-range on 145 to 180 day, the sweet spot. Boutique quinta, fine meals, whales, wine. The $15 to $20 weekly tax is trivial here. Verdict. Strongly worth it.
Family of 4, spending around $3,400 a week. Safe, cable cars are great, but the no-sand beach is a risk. Stay in Canizo or the Lido and factor in the $55 Portosano ferry. Verdict. Worth it if the beach is not the only goal.
Luxury tier. Reed's Palace at $340 to $500, fine dining for $80 to $120, private guide for $120 to $150, private chartered whale watching for $200 to $280. It competes with Sardinia or Corsica, but wilder. Not overbuilt. Verdict. Absolutely worth it.
And the Nomad on $1,700 to $2,200 a month, Ponta do Sol is legit. Risks. Funchal apartment prices are up 21% year on year. Book 8 weeks out. Use Facebook groups to find places under $1,000. Verdict. Worth it. It's easily top 5 in Europe.
So what does this all mean? Summarizing the whole board, Madeira has simply decided it wants to be a premium destination, and the pricing finally reflects that reality.
Exactly. And it concludes that value in travel isn't just about being cheap. It's about what you get for your dollar. At the mid-range and luxury levels, Madeira's unique topography and incredible safety offer unparalleled ROI. But I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. As Madeira implements these taxes and builds digital nomad villages, what happens to an island culture when its primary economy shifts entirely from producing local goods to managing the flow of passing visitors? Does it risk becoming a beautifully maintained museum of itself?
If this gave you the honest verdict you needed, follow the show. New episodes drop every day.
That is the honest verdict from Phil and H.